Welcome to a special edition of Outlaw Nation on the Shady Sports Network. We have a bit of breaking news tonight that we wanted to share with Outlaw Nation. The Billings Outlaws and the Eagle Seeker Community Center, formerly the Shrine Auditorium, have announced a deal that will allow the Billings Outlaws a place to practice for the 2023 season. The Eagle Seeker Community Center has a huge space that will allow the Outlaws to hold full-scale practice activities as well as kicking. The news comes as the team is now completely moved out of the Sportsplex and training camp is set to begin. The Eagle Seeker Community Center is a nonprofit organization and is associated with the Native American Development Corporation. Both Mary Walks Over Ice and Jack Nichols played huge roles in putting this deal together. We will have more on all the wonderful things that this community center is going to be doing throughout the course of the season. Here to discuss this breaking news with us is owner of the Billings Outlaws, Stephen Titus.
What a relief. It has been a long few months trying to get this thing done, and I'm thankful for everyone in Billings who could put me I think all the Outlaw organization and give them some assurances and some rest that all pieces are now in place for a good run for a 2023 championship. Everything's where it needs to be. And a special thanks goes to Brown Plumbing and Heating, Lisa Rowich, my CEO, and Coach Lachlan, who have been working nonstop on this project. I'm just so thankful that this all came together. And, Steve, to be honest with you, of course we were going to practice at the Sportsplex this year. And, the Sportsplex has been on and off the market the last 10 years. I never expect it would have been sold as quickly as it did because we were in the final stages of getting our practice contract and our rental contract done. And then all of a sudden this thing goes under contract. But I'm so thankful for everyone on the ground in Billings for getting this deal done. So everything's ready to go for a 2023 championship.
Yes, it is. Hey, so another silver lining is why you and your team, were out searching for a new practice facility. You kind of stumbled upon an old Outlaw supporter in the Yellowstone Boys and Girls Ranch. It's my understanding that the Outlaws of old used to practice kind of out there and use that facility a little bit. Will the new Outlaws organization look to rekindle that relationship with them?
Well, Steve, with any decision, you first analyze the good and the bad, and there's absolutely no bad that can come from being partners with the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, their facilities are great. They have, the horse training facility. They have the gym. They just have a multitude of facilities. Plus, it gives us a community outreach component that had previously been missing in the Outlaws. So absolutely, I look forward to seeing what exactly we can do for the children there, making sure they get at the games, making sure that our players are out there. That's one thing that just from the outside looking in last season that was missing was the kid component of everything. And that's what brings these teams together. That's what these teams are all about in these small communities, is having young men that these kids can look up to. I mean, these are their heroes. They know our players' names. They know what our players are all about. They idolize these kids. And so this new partnership with the Boys and Girls Club will bring that partnership back together, as well as a focus on getting into the elementary schools, the middle schools, the high schools, getting children involved at the games. And we're doing a lot of things this year to increase that partnership with the children and with the community. And my goal, and I know, my CEO, Lisa Rowich, and I know Coach Lachlan and I have talked extensively about this, is that community outreach, that community support, and making sure that more Outlaws are visible in the community. It just pays huge dividends, because that's what Billings deserves, is a team that is there not only to win games on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, but also to be there for these kids to look up to and idolize. And so I'm looking forward to really developing this new partnership with the Boys and Girls Club that the Outlaws of the early 2000s used to have.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. I'm not sure if everyone in Outlaw Nation knows this, but you actually own two teams in the CIF. You also own the Gillette Mustangs. What are your thoughts on owning two teams, and what are your current thoughts on the current state of the CIF?
Great questions. And so I was talking to one of our partners here in Gillette earlier this week, and then I was talking to a partner Saturday when I was in Billings about this. They go, Steve, isn't it a conflict of interest to own two teams? And really, at first glance, it kind of seems that way. But then you look at one sport I grew up with and watched a lot of growing up was NASCAR. And the one-car teams really didn't do well at all. It was always the multi-car teams. And then you kind of think about, why do the multi-car teams work? They get to share resources. And what do I mean by share resources? Our purchasing power. So I'm back up just a little bit. When I saw the Damar Hamlin incident happen, I remember I'm on bowling league in Gillette on Monday nights. And I remember sitting there and I was scared. I go, this could happen in Gillette. Someone could get hit. This could happen in Billings. This could happen in Gillette. This could happen anywhere on an indoor field. Someone get hit and it just gets hit at that right time where it stops their heart from beating. Essentially, this cardiac incident occurs. And so the first thing we did was immediately I met with the coaches and I talked about how we need to increase our safety standards. So what we did right away is I ordered new helmets. I wanted new helmets for both teams. So I go to one of these manufacturers and I go, what can we do for helmets? And they look at price breaks. Ordering new helmets for both teams saved us almost $150 per helmet. If I was only ordering them for one team, I would have had to pay $150 more for that one team's helmet. So obviously the purchasing power is a big thing. We're getting merchandise for cheaper. It's getting ready to launch for the year. Our say in the league obviously increases. We get 2 votes on things. And so to me, we have coaches that meet, coaches that strategize about things. But there's a lot of good that comes from owning 2 teams. And that's why I think the multi teams in NASCAR are so successful, is because there is the utilization of resources. We get to buy things in bulk mainly, and we get more power with negotiating contracts and things of that nature. So obviously I'm all in favor now of owning 2 teams. I have no intuition, or I have no desire to own more than 2 teams. I have red eyes right now because of owning 2 teams. There's always, and football season's here. So yes. I'm excited about that. And then I think to your second question is a very interesting question, the current state of the CIF. And so here in a month and a half, I'll reach my 1 year of being part of the indoor football and owning a team. And it's been a very long year, a very big learning curve. But, I'll be the first one to admit I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm far from the dumbest as well. And so I learned things very quick, I hope. In my mind, this is a make or break year for the CIF. There are too many leagues out there right now. We have the AFL coming back, and the CIF, I'm very much in favor of the CIF model, but it continues to fall drastically. Let's turn back the clock. Let's look 6 years ago to 2017. The Sioux Falls Storm was getting out of the IFL to move to the CIF. A lawsuit was brought by the IFL to stop that move, and they ended up staying in the IFL. What happens? IFL Commissioner Todd Tryon sells his team and brings the IFL to undoubtedly the top indoor league in the country. Since that time, the CIF is, a lot of people say that there are different tiers, and there are 3 leagues in our tier, the IFL, the NAL, and the CIF. The CIF has 8 teams this year, and the ownership of those 6 of those teams have been around for less than 2 years. I mean, we're all kind of new to this, but I can tell you that the CIF now, in my mind, has ambition. It has the goal of going from good to great, and it has the goals of trying to make the league sustainable as well as the team sustainable. We have focused team owners. We have team owners that are more conscious and aware of things, because at the end of the day, Steve, this is the same CIF that allowed Pick Six Entertainment to possibly ruin 3 markets. And so our new ownerships are very focused on making sure that we have good owners, that we have good rules in place, that we have a solid future moving forward, because the CIF business model is the best. It's a bus league. We don't want to be flying to places. We don't want to have to go through all that, because the cost of that just becomes pretty exorbitant. And
Right.
so, we have people that are looking at rules. We have a new head of officials this year who is meeting with officials consistently, constantly, making sure we have good officials that are all on the same page, enacting the same rules for every arena or facility in the league. The CIF is definitely going in the right direction. And so I'm real excited for this year. Some of the rule changes that are coming about. We're really doing the right thing to ensure that the CIF does not end up in some kind of obscure place in the future. And just seeing what was allowed with Pick Six Entertainment. Every league has its problems, but I believe that our ownerships now are extremely conscious of the dangers that can come if we're not prudent enough in some of the decisions we make. So I'm real excited for the teams in the 2023 season.
Nice. There have been rumors of a possible merger with the NAL and other leagues. Can you confirm or deny any discussions about a possible merger?
So one, I don't know if there's any merger coming. I got in this league last year. You can Google online in 2020, 2019, maybe 2021, somewhere in there. There were talks about the CIF and the NAL merging, and they had made a press release. They had went, all the way through it, and then somehow it fell apart. Last year, there were some talks with one of the owners of one of the teams and the then commissioner about a merger. It never got to the point where the board even discussed the matter. They are, if you think about it, the IFL is, in my mind, far and away the top league in our, tier. They're doing everything right they can possibly doing. It is what it is. Todd Tryon is doing an amazing job with the IFL. They are putting on a great show for their teams and for their players and for their fans. They're doing the right things. The NAL is also doing the right things. They have the right staff in place. Their social media is good. Their followers are good. If you look at the metrics, YouTube, Facebook fans, things like that, they're doing the right things. I was earlier this evening, I was watching your interview with Coach Walker and Gillette, and there's a big difference between the arena game and the indoor game. And if we were to merge, that would have to be a discussion, obviously, with the owners of everyone of if we're going to change any rules, what rules are going to change, whether our arenas can support the rebound nets and things like that, because the NL is bringing those back. But there's no reason why, if the CIF wanted to merge, that they couldn't. Obviously, I talked earlier about costs and keeping costs low and things like that. There was a league pre-1997 that, separate. Well, there's a possibility you could create a Western Conference of the NAL, I guess, and you could create an Eastern Conference of the NAL. In Major League Baseball pre-1997, the American League only played the National League at the World Series. So if something were to come up with the NAL and, the Western Conference only played the Western Conference during the year and the Eastern Conference only played the Eastern Conference of the year, and then the two decided to play each other at the end of the year, there's something like that could happen. The logistics could be worked out. It would just be whether the owners of the CIF, if they wanted to merged and what that looked like. But it's, I guess if there's a will, there's a way. And that's one of those things.
That'd be super interesting.
Yeah.
The CIF implemented a new salary cap for the season. For the Billings Outlaws, it's drastically different from the beginning of last year to the beginning of this year. What are your thoughts on the cap? And do you think it creates a level playing field?
Right. So the Billings Outlaws had the highest weekly salary out of any team in indoor football. Without a doubt, they had great players that were doing great things. They were winning. It's not sustainable. And so, I voted in favor of the salary cap. I think it's a little low. I think it's a low, but I told my teams they need to obey the salary cap. The salary cap is the salary cap. There are teams through the rumor mill that are finding loopholes around the salary cap. If I had it to do over, I would not have voted for the salary cap because people aren't going to obey it. People are going to try to find a way to cheat. And I'm just not that kind of person. So with that in mind, I wouldn't have voted for it. And people want the teams can go make whatever they want for money and their team every week, how much they can sell in sponsorships and try to make the team sustainable. The goal of the salary cap were to make the teams more sustainable, to make sure that the teams aren't running out of money at the end of the year, like what happened in Billings last year, and that the team folds. It was an attempt to make the teams more sustainable. However, enforcement, how are you going to enforce it when people just probably aren't going to be honest about it? So if I had it to do over, I would have voted no on it. But it is what it is this year. And it's something to look at next year. And one thing that I think is interesting is my understanding of the NAL rules is that they don't have a salary cap. It's basically every team is kind of in their own sandbox, and you got to stay in your sandbox. And, I have very strong emotions about the salary cap and how I think it should be obeyed and how it probably won't be this year. I mean, it's just very frustrating.
Sure. Can you walk us through how yourself and the other owners created and implemented the new 3 and 4 point rule? And what kind of excitement do you expect that to create this year?
Contentiously. It was an old guard versus new guard thing. That's exactly what it was. It was a split vote. But it's going to be great. It separates us from other indoor football. And that's exactly what we need to do to go from good to great. The CIF is good. It's good. It's going to tread water, but nowhere are we going to keep moving the thing forward. In my mind, this is one of those moves that starts to make us move forward, separates us from the other leagues. And so, I was looking, we don't just create ideas to create ideas. There's no reason to recreate the wheel. Let's see what's working in other leagues. USFL has the 3-point conversion. Okay. It wasn't used that much. XFL they don't kick, I believe. And so they have a 1, 2, and 3-point conversion from the same yardage as we do. And the XFL had a study out on this, on looking at conversion rates from different yard lines. So I read that, and the XFL commissioner said his goal, essentially, I'm going to paraphrase here, essentially his goal was to stop when there was a PAT or a field goal kick. He didn't want people to decide to go to the fridge and grab a beer or to go make him a sandwich or something like that. They wanted to create excitement every moment during the game. And so that made sense. And so I thought it was a great idea and a great move for us to create excitement at every point of the game. So you could be down by 30 at halftime, and in 3 possessions, you could make that up in the second half. So it really creates the option for teams to never really be blown out. And so, and I'll be the first to admit, Steve, if I have a bad idea or something bad happens, I want to fix it. So if this ends up being bad and it not working and being a disaster, I'll be the first person to say, hey, we need to change the rules back next year. But it harms no one to try it one time. And knowing my luck and knowing Murphy's Law, I'm going to lose a game on a 3 or 4 point conversion by the other side. I mean, that's just, I know that's what's going to happen because that's my luck and that's Murphy's Law. But at the end of the day, we're trying to do things to revamp the game and to make things more interesting. And so I was completely in favor of it. And so I'm really looking forward to how this plays out, because I don't know if it's going to be used as much as we think, or if people, it's going to be kind of a, it's going to be like a shootout at the, you're going to have 2 guys standing there. Who's going to be the first one to pull a gun and see how things work out? And so I'm real interested to see how these 2, 3, 4 point conversions work. And then we just voted on a rule change as well that allows, if the defense recovers the ball and scores, they get that same amount of points as well if it's a 3 or 4 point conversion. So that's real exciting to see. So no, I'm really excited to see how this all works out, because again, no harm can come from it, and it separates us from the other 2 leagues in our tier, which we need to do.
Absolutely. As a fan, I am fired up. I cannot wait.
I'm excited too.
Hey, do you see an opportunity for sports gambling on arena football? And if you do, what do you think sports gambling would do for the sport?
Yeah. Great question. Sports gambling is taking over the country right now. You watch any football game. Oh, what prop bets are we going to have? Who is it going to be? Who's going to score the first touchdown? Viewership. I was thinking about this because I'll preface this and say I am a big proponent of sports gambling in indoor football, and why that is very simple. Viewership in the NFL prior to, there was a Supreme Court decision, I think, that started all this, that basically said that there was a law that said you could only sports gamble in Nevada and New Jersey, and all the states kind of started getting on board. And that was, I can't remember when that was, but in 2017 to 2021, in 2021, NFL viewership was up 20 or 25%, basically just because of sports gambling. People were more interested in what was happening. And then they had I think a 5% increase again this year because sports gambling keeps growing. In order to make these teams more sustainable, in my mind, we need more viewership from all around the country. We need to give our partners and our sponsors more exposure. We need to give people more bang for their buck. And so, if people in Billings, Montana, if people in Gillette, Wyoming could go, I guess in Montana, if they could go down to their local casino and go place a sports bet, are they more likely to go to an Outlaws game? Are they more likely to support the Outlaws? Without a shadow of a doubt. Same thing in Wyoming. If they can get on their BetMGM app, their DraftKings app, their FanDuel app, whatever, and bet on the Gillette Mustangs game, are they going to be more interested in the Gillette Mustangs? Absolutely. So why can you, in the middle of the night, bet on a random Russian ping pong game, but not American indoor football? It makes no sense. And so what I have advocated doing for quite a while, and what the IFL is doing, and they're doing it right, is making sure that these odds makers have the access to the right information, and that it's reliable information to make good odds on what happens. And so in my mind, the CIF could really move things forward. And I made this clear to other owners in the league, how I feel about this. I don't hide how I feel. I don't know if you can tell it or not. I really don't hide how I feel about a lot of things. But we could really push things forward, get more attention to our league, to our games. For example, if you are betting on Russian ping pong in the middle of the night in Wyoming on your BetMGM app or whatever app, you can actually watch the game on your app as well and watch the match. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to watch indoor football games as well and to bet on those. And so I absolutely am a complete advocate for the betting. The other part of that as well is that, you have integrity in the league. You make sure that referees are being well-trained. You make sure that stats are reliable. You make things that there's nothing else strange going on in these games. And so we do what we can to make sure that our teams have a fair crack at everything, and that everything is very well regulated and things like that. So I'm a complete proponent of gambling for indoor football, and I can tell you that in the next 5 years, if my teams will be in a league where we do have sports gambling, because I believe that is great for our product, and it moves things in the right direction, because it just gives us awareness. Because the day that there's an indoor football league that does have all their games bet on, I can tell you the other leagues fall behind very quickly.
I can tell you, as a sports fan myself, speaking for the fan base, we want to bet on arena football.
I want that day to happen too, and I'm there. I wish the CIF was taking more movement towards making that happen.
Yeah. This will be your first full year as owner of the Billings Outlaws. You took over for, as you mentioned, a miserable ownership group who lied and manipulated the community halfway through last season. What things are you doing to mend those relationships, and what are the other owners and the CIF itself doing to ensure a quality product, and that something like that never happens again?
Good question. So this year on our 2023 jerseys, there are bear claw marks on it. We are the Billings Outlaws. We're not bears. We have nothing to do with bears whatsoever. But I cannot express the amount of stress that myself, my staff, the community, and the players had over what happened last year. It was, in my mind, the bear marks or the bear claws are very symbolic of being in a bear fight where the bear is mauling you. And that is my mantra for the 2023 season, is that we survive the bear fight and that we will have those scars there for a while. And so what we've done, and I know my team in Billings has, and I've met with a lot of partners as well, is to do whatever we can to mend those fences, to mend those bridges, to right the wrongs. I can tell you that the partners that have stuck with us will be in for a great ride. The partners that were with us last year, not with us this year, we will do whatever we can to get them back. But our priority will always be to the ones that stuck with us during this time, because we were absolutely in May of last year, June of last year, July of last year at our lowest. And those are the things you remember. And I can tell you, Brown Plumbing and Heating, that was the first phone call I made when I got off, when the ownership transferred. That was the first phone call I made. And the guys, Steve and Ryan at Brown Plumbing and Heating, have been invaluable. I mean, they have just been amazing people. There's no amount of words I can say to thank them in Billings. The stuff they do for our team is just incredible. TDS Fiber, Donahue Roofing. I mean, all these guys have been through us through thick and thin. And you always remember that. And when things get big this year, next year, the year after, you always remember who was there with you at rock bottom. And I won't forget it. So moving on is we're going to do whatever we can to right our wrongs. And we have been able to expand our partnerships this year. We've been able to move forward. One thing I did forget to talk about was owning two teams is there are a lot of sponsors. Well, I don't want to say a lot. There are a good number of sponsors in Billings that have business in Gillette that we've expanded their partnerships to include Gillette now. And the same vice versa. There's a lot of companies, surprisingly, they're headquartered or have big offices in Gillette that do a lot of business in Billings. So we've been able to expand our partnerships in Billings as well that way. And so we want people to know that we have a quality product in both places. As far as the CIF goes, I believe, so first off, there have been no rule changes from what happened with Pick 6. There have been no rule changes, which is disappointing to me, but it is what it is. I don't know what the financial requirements are for team owners. I know that, I'm going to be able to afford two teams. I don't know that. I'd like to see those kind of things in place, certain financial requirements moving forward. But at the end of the day, those rules mean something, but they don't, because I know that our ownership group right now in the CIF is extremely solid. We have great owners, and I know that we are vetting owners closer than we ever have. There's some talk of some teams that may join the CIF next year. And I can tell you that we are vetting those like no others. Questions are being asked that have never been asked in my mind or in my memory of these ownership groups. And so I know with our current ownership that even if we don't have the rule changes or anything like that, that the teams are going to be solid if they're coming in. Like they're going to have their letter of credits put into place. They're going to have the financial standing to withhold because we know what our season budgets are. They're going to have the financial well-doing to make sure that the teams are going to be sustainable. What worries me is in indoor football, you can easily kill a market. Billings almost was a killed market. One of the best markets nonstop in indoor football is Billings, Montana. The Outlaws are an incredibly successful franchise. I mean, they've been around almost 25 years. And it was almost burned one year by someone who shouldn't have owned a football team at the end of the day. So what worries me, though, is for expansion. One league in particular that's expanded very quickly has allowed the former ownership of Pick Six Entertainment into their league. And that scares me because they're in good markets. And they're going to burn those markets to where we're not going to have indoor football there in the next 5 to 10 years. And so it's very worrisome is that, we have different leagues and leagues have different criteria for them to be in it. But we have one league that's, probably 10, 15, 20 teams that's allowing former ownership of Pick Six Entertainment into their league. That's going to, maybe they've changed, maybe they haven't, but, it's very worrisome that we're going to allow markets to possibly be ruined. And so I know we're very cognizant of that now in the CIF, is to make sure that when we get into a market that the ownership is solid enough to where we're not going to have any fingerprints on a burnt market. So I'll probably get criticized by people for what I said, but that's exactly how I feel as someone who picked up a large bill that we need to be very cognizant of our decisions. And that's just my mindset and my rewiring, I think, as a lawyer, is that I don't make jump decisions. We try to really process those because there could be a lot of unintended consequences. And thank God for the people that we have on the ground in Billings that saved the Outlaws and that saved the market, because it was almost one and done last year. But everything is great. Everything is good to go. And Billings has all the tools necessary to win a championship. They have the great players, great coaches, great staff on the ground, a great facility to practice in, a great facility to play in. All the pieces are put into place correctly to ensure that we should be competing for a 2023 CIF championship.
Love it. Owner of our Billings Outlaws, Stephen Titus. Stephen, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for everything you do for us. And I was going to ask Sam what his Super Bowl prediction was. I was going to ask him if he thought it was going to be Chiefs by 4 or not. So
no, I can tell you, we don't even need to cut to Sam. I can promise you that is not his prediction.
Is that not his prediction? That works.
No.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Shady Sports Network. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you at our normal time every Monday at 4:30 p.m. Next week, we get to visit with the new defensive coordinator, Tay Brooks. See you then.